Hello everybody and welcome to another No Wrong Path interview, part of our series for 2020, and taking these interviews online, hopefully enabling you to meet some people a little bit more in the flesh. We're in a bit of a strange time at the moment, and currently while we're recording these, we're in the middle of exam season results. So just had the A-level results yesterday, so today's 14th of August, and next week, we get GCSE results. So I'm really happy to welcome Neil Hussey to the interview for today, and we'll start to learn a little bit more about Neil as the interview goes on. So Neil, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
So if let's start with school for you. So how was school? Did you enjoy it? And did you know what you wanted to do when you were at school?
I was lucky. I went to a private school. So from the age of 11, I was pulled out the state school system and I went to private school, so boarding school. So I was very lucky. I enjoyed that. Got very immersed in all the sports and all that sort of stuff. So I thoroughly enjoyed school. Left with A levels. So yeah, the school experience for me was a good experience.
Good. And did you know what you wanted to do?
Didn't have a clue. This was back in the 80s, which is probably dating me a bit now, but back in the 80s, everyone wanted to do business studies. Business studies was the thing to do. I did geography, history and economics for my A levels, with a view to doing a business studies degree at either Polytechnic or a university. I didn't get the grades that I needed, because I didn't knuckle down and do my work. Lesson for all the kids: knuckle down and do your work. And
did you do so they were the subjects that you were doing while you were at school, or when you had gone into A levels? Right. Okay.
Yeah. I boarding school. You went straight from O levels to A levels. You stayed in the same place. So yeah.
Okay.
I did my O levels and sat down at the careers meeting and didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. And they said, well, do business studies then. So I did geography, history, economics. I passed geography and economics with a D and an E, and I failed history, and so I couldn't get into to Polytechnic or university. Couldn't get through the clearing system, didn't have enough points, so it was a bit of a head scratching moment, that was.
So you felt for all of those pupils yesterday when they were getting their A levels.
Yes,
you really had the empathy there, didn't you?
I certainly did, although it's not their fault, it was my fault. So
yeah. So what did you end up doing?
I'm now I'm an engineer.
How did you get into that? Well,
one thing I've always been interested in is I've always taken things apart, wanted to know how things work. And so my dad said when I didn't get into higher education, he said, well, why didn't you look at doing engineering? It's like, well, I'm rubbish at maths. I failed maths O level 3 times. I probably can't do it. And so we found a conversion course to engineering. That basically you did your A-level maths and other things that enabled you to get onto a degree, and it was a 2-year course, and so I enrolled on that, and I did that, got onto the degree. Just to say I failed that because I was too interested in, I was interested in drinking, playing rugby, but I didn't again do the studies. I didn't learn from my A-levels. But the other thing was it didn't quite really prepare you enough for it. A lot of people on the course didn't pass the first year because you just didn't quite have the same understanding that the people who'd done A levels and everything else had done. You try to cram everything into 2 years, your maths, dynamics, materials, all this other stuff, and you try to cram it in. And rather than ask for help, I just sort of stuck my head in the sand, and there we are. But later date, I took on an HNC and then did a degree whilst I was working full time and bringing kids up and everything, and eventually got my degree. And yes.
So how many years later did you get your degree?
Well, 10 years later.
Right. Okay.
So
which is really apt.
Yeah.
Really apt for our No Wrong Path.
Exactly. I did an HNC. I got a job in Luton working on the council, and then did an engineering company. Again, that didn't work out. They were looking for something else, and then they had to make redundancies, and I was one of the ones that they made redundant. And then moved up to Lancashire to be nearer to my them partner's parents, because we had a small child, my eldest daughter. And so I then, after a couple of years working in phone converters, cutting foam for sofas with people like DFS and that lot. I decided that I was going to do an art course because I wanted to do something in the sort of vocationally, and I went down to the local college to sign up to do a watercolor arts course, and came out having signed up to do an HNC in engineering.
Interesting.
I stood next to someone who was the engineering leader, and we got talking and said what background was, and they said, why don't you do an HNC? So I said, okay then. So I signed up for the HNC.
Wow.
And
so far we've got great start in education with private school.
Yep.
Living everything it has to offer.
Yep.
Exams hit and it doesn't quite go your way.
Yep.
Then moving into some engineering, and your first tackle at a degree doesn't go your way. Bit
Yep.
of work, bit of travelling up and down the country. You're then now back into engineering, and
Yep.
you successfully completed your HNC.
I did, yes. So I completed that in the second year. I was looking for work and couldn't get work, so I got a bit disillusioned. So I probably didn't do as well as I could have done again in the second year, because I couldn't get a job in engineering because I didn't have the experience, and I couldn't get the experience because I didn't have a degree qualification and all this sort of stuff. So I was going around in that little circle. So again, I carried on working for another couple of years. And then the college contacted me and said, look, we're now running these degree courses, and because you've done the HNC, you get exemption from so many modules. And you can basically do a degree in 2 years, because we can exempt you from enough modules from the first year because you've done your HNC. So you can have a 2-year degree, and you can study part-time again on a Friday, all day Friday, and a Wednesday evening, which suited me because I was working continental shifts. So I signed up for that.
Fabulous.
Yes, so I then did that.
What's your degree finally in?
Well, it's a funny degree. It's a BSc in Integrated Technologies from the University of Sheffield. I studied at Accrington and Rosendale College, but it's accredited by the University of Sheffield. So I have a degree from the University of Sheffield. As far as everyone knows, I went to Sheffield University.
Yeah.
I didn't. I studied in Accrington, but you know. So it was a third electrical, a third mechanical, and a third computing. So it's a bit of a broad base, which suited me down to the ground. You know, you did CAD/CAM, manufacturing, and then you did digital electronics, normal electrical stuff, and then also computing, networking, and computer programming.
Wow. So if we fast forward into present day, so what's your job today? What do you do today?
My title is Technical Sales Engineer. So I am a sales engineer, something I never actually wanted to do. What I do is I've just recently started work. I got made redundant back in June, along with a lot of other people due to COVID. And through social networking and everything else, found myself another role. And I'm now technical sales manager for a local company in Stroud who do subcontract machining.
Wow. Okay. And you never, if we'd have said to your younger self at school, this is what you're going to be doing, you probably would have sat there and went, I'm going to be doing what?
I'd have laughed at you, because a big part of my job is picking the phone up and talking to people. And as a young person, I hated talking to people on the phone, and I was very shy, and I wouldn't talk to anyone. You wouldn't have caught me doing anything like this sort of 35 years ago.
So what changed?
I think you just grow up, don't you? You grow up, things change. I had a family, you have to adapt and do these things. The first job I did in engineering was a sales role. It's something I thought I would never, ever do. But I enjoy doing that. I enjoy picking up, talking to people. I talk far too much, as you'll gather from this interview. So it was just something that I seem to have grown into and evolved into. It's the same with the education thing. When I was younger, I couldn't do maths. I hated it, couldn't do it, didn't understand it, probably didn't want to do it. When I did my HNC, something just clicked. I could do integration, differentiation. I could find areas under curves. All the sort of stuff that as a younger me I couldn't do. Something just clicked.
I think it's very difficult, isn't it, when we're younger? I think a lot of us reflect back, and we think, gosh, we just didn't know what we wanted to do. and it was very difficult to visualize ourselves as adults in the adult world and doing a job. Now, some people were very clear. I remember being at school, and you've got the people that knew they wanted to be an architect,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
you know, a physicist or a doctor, or you know, whatever it may be. A lot of people knew they wanted to go into teaching. They were very, very clear. But if you didn't have a clear path, it was very challenging, wasn't it?
It wasn't, and I don't think the advice, certainly back then, if you didn't know what you wanted to do, they were a bit stuck as to what to do with you. And they
Yeah,
kind of shoehorned you into a generic sort of, you know,
yeah,
go and do business studies, or go and
yeah.
do media, or go and do something else. And yeah, I think today there's a lot more advice out there, and there's a lot more, um, you know, in terms of, you know, no one actually ever told me and spoke to me about vocational qualifications when I was
No,
younger. It
no.
was, you've got to go down the university route. That's the way you had to go. And, you know, I kind of wish I'd done an apprenticeship now. I would have loved to have done
Yeah,
an apprenticeship in engineering.
yeah.
In a previous role, I had a lot of hands-on machining that I did, as well as research and development, welding, fabricating, all those sort of things that, you know, if I'd done an apprenticeship, I would have loved to have done.
Mm. So, what advice would you give to students who are, you know, they're going through their GCSEs at the moment? So maybe they're going to be sitting them next year, or the year after, or they're sitting their A levels next year, and they're still not sure what they want to do. What advice would you give to them?
I'd say don't worry about not knowing what you want to do. You know,
Hmm.
I would have said the majority of people don't know what they want to do. They've got an inkling roughly what they like doing, on what they, you know, what they might want to do, but they don't know. And it's, you know, keep an open mind, because you can change career, you know, very easily. You know, it might
Mm,
take you a year or so's worth of backstepping and having to retrain or whatever, but you can just change careers and do whatever you want. So it's not the end of the world. You know, it's
no.
not something that you have to make that decision and stick with it, you know, regardless.
And what do you think are the skills that they do need? Because obviously, what we're talking about here is changing careers and changing into different areas, but there is some other skills, interpersonal skills, that you always need, I think, to make you a little bit transferable and a bit adaptable. What do you think
Yes.
those core skills are for you that have made you successful?
It's learning about the soft skills. It's the soft skills that they don't teach in schools. I don't know if they do these days, but I think a lot of stuff. I know, remembering we did do interview techniques and things,
Yeah.
which everyone sort of, you know, hated, and you sat there and you went 15 million times, which they then pointed out and everyone laughed at. But it's the soft skills that I think are very important,
Hmm.
that I don't think get taught. And it's those things that I think you learn with a bit of experience. You know, you do something, you find out you don't like the job, but you do learn some soft skills, and that's what's then transferable into your new job, or whatever you're doing.
So maybe, you know, that communication piece with other people, being able to learn something and then reflect on whether that's something you like to do and then you can move on, or whether you change direction and make that decision at that time.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, fabulous. So time runs away on these things.
Yes, yes.
But I'd like to just ask you, your experience of this year then, 2020. Unfortunately, you found yourself made redundant.
Yes.
So how did you manage to secure yourself a new job?
Well, I got made redundant, was it June the 4th? And I went in the morning and sat down for what I thought was going to be an objectives meeting, and HR were there, and I thought, it's not going to go very well. So that morning, that was at 9:30. By about 10:30, I was out and on the way home, giving my wife the good news. And then 12 o'clock, I thought, well, there's no point moping around, just got to get on with it. And then I thought, right, I've been having a look on LinkedIn, been playing with LinkedIn. I ran the social media accounts for a previous employer. So I thought, right, let's leverage my connections on social media. I'm in some manufacturing groups with CEOs, MDs, those sort of people. And basically, I leveraged my connections, told them I'm looking for work. I had to be a bit quiet because of my notice period and everything, from my previous job. So basically leveraged my social media contacts and put the word out that I was looking for work. I put my CV on Twitter, and it got 19,000 impressions in 24 hours. So
You put your CV on Twitter?
I did. I had to take it down because I left my phone number on there. But so I had to take it down, which is a shame because it had got a lot of impressions and was getting quite a lot of
Wow.
yeah. But I then applied to lots and lots of different agencies, went on the internet, applied, uploaded my CV straight away that afternoon, redid my CV, made a covering letter, then decided I wasn't particularly good at copywriting and everything else. So then went to someone and paid them some money to update my CV and do me a covering letter. And then, yes, just applied for lots and lots of jobs, got lots and lots of knockbacks. And then decided, I've really got to leverage social media. So put some posts out there, got my contacts to share them. And I got 3 or 4 people contacting me saying they had some work. Was I interested? One was from a local company, which is where I'm working at the moment. Who I knew through a previous job. They said, seen on social media that you're looking for a job. Do you want to come down and have a chat?
So it's all about leveraging that community and that network that you've built up over the years.
It is. I mean, that's one thing I would say to people, which I didn't do to start off with, is as soon as you've got yourself a professional role, or even if you're in university, get yourself on LinkedIn, get yourself some social media presence. Be careful about what you put out on social media because it could come back to bite you in your professional life. But certainly use social media as an additional tool.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm 50 and obviously, fairly late in life coming to social media, but, it is certainly a very good tool for, getting your message out there and everything. So, yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. Neil, thank you so much for your time today. That's been really interesting. They do feel like whistle-stop tours, but you've taken our students that will be watching and any adults that will be watching through some really key advice on how to keep on going, and that there really is no wrong path. You can change your career. And some helpful tips there on LinkedIn and getting yourself out there and utilising your community. So thank you so much for being part of that. Much appreciated.
That's quite all right. My pleasure.